Now, let's get more on our top story. Bradford and Bingley has lost its chief executive because of ill health. The news comes just hours before the bank is widely expected to issue a profit warning. Well, earlier, Andrew Teacher from the British Property Federation explained how the bank ended up in this situation.
Actually, if we look at the situation as a whole over the last few years, what we've had is imprudent lending from a lot of the big banks, and that's got us into a position where we've seen the housing market really expand really at the doorstep of the amateur investors that have taken out these buy-to-let mortgages. But I think now we're actually seeing a situation where the bubble has burst and the government is faced with the very real problem that demand for housing is going to continue to rise, but there's no one there to actually pay for it. So what the British Property Federation is actually going to be saying to the Housing Minister in a couple of weeks at our conference is that she needs to actually work with the private sector to find a way to get the big institutions, such as big pension funds or life funds, to actually put their money into housing and build new properties, because amateur investors that would previously have got buy-to-let mortgages now aren't going to be able to do that.
The British Property Federation represents who?
Represent a mixture of developers, landlords, investors, everybody really, right across the board, from the people that are building the BBC's new studios right through to smaller landlord groups as well.
So, I mean, don't you represent people who can solve the problem for themselves?
Yes, we represent a lot of the larger landlords as well, and what we actually want to see is the kind of market that they have in the States and in Europe, where we actually have corporate rental. And if you think in this country, we actually have brands for everything, whether you're talking about high street electricals or car hire. But housing, even though that's the most expensive service that we pay for, we don't have brands delivering that service. And what the British Property Federation thinks is people should have a choice. People should actually be able to choose where they get their property from, where they rent it from. And actually, if the government actually tells councils to take the powers they have to help this situation come forward, then we could actually see institutions coming forward with new money for new homes.
Do you see any sign of that happening in the present climate?
I mean, the government seems to be listening. We've had the announcement of a new green paper, another housing reform green paper. But I think we've had 10 various bills and consultations over the last few years, and I think it's time for the government to stop running endless reviews and endless consultations and actually start delivering action, because if demand continues to rise and supply doesn't continue to increase, we're going to be faced with a second housing crisis of rents rising, and nobody wants that. So the government actually needs to take notice now. It needs to start listening rather than just claiming to, and actually help institutions come in, incentivise new developments and actually work with the private sector.